And then, in the 1990s, along came Vampire. Hi, I'm Reed, this is Crowland Publishing, and today we are talking about games that you will like that are not D&D, and we're talking about the World of Darkness. So in 1990, Vampire drops and everything changes, and it's the first of the World of Darkness line, and it was so cool, man. World of Darkness is a game of urban or dark fantasy, which is just a way of saying horror, but, with better marketing. And you played the baddies. You played vampires and ghosts and werewolves and all that sort of business. Vampire, it had sex and death and trench coats and industrial music and doing it with the sex, and it was goth and leather, and it was the 90s, and Vampire was so cool, man. It really changed things. Then a few years after that, the companion game came along, Werewolf, with the same company, with its hippie eco-warriors sticking it to those polluting corporate bastards theme. And then along came Mage a few years after that, and it was the 90s, and we were all doing LSD and disco biscuits and doing shamanism in our studio flat. And then along came Wraith and Changeling, and Wraith was about being a ghost, man, down to this really bizarre Byzantine underworld, but someone else played your guilty conscience, so you'd have these intense role-playing scenarios where you'd be going, I just want to get together with my husband, and someone would be whispering in your ear, tease the puppy with no treat, and it was just incredible. And Changeling was about how being an adult is stupid, you squares, and the World of Darkness changed everything. RPGs were hip and edgy and exciting and dark and artistic. It was artistic to play RPGs. Anything that wasn't World of Darkness was boring, old, stupid D&D boomer stuff. Yep, we had boomers back in the 90s. But anyway, for our purposes, for our narrative game purposes, what really set Vampire aside was that you had to at least try, as a GM, to make the game your own. And it ruled. Vampire wasn't a game of adventure. It was a game about politics. This is the important bit. It was about making a PC with complex needs. And it just created so many new ways to be in a role-playing campaign. And it sort of mandated that you be a role-player. If you just created a min-max combat monster with no personality but to kill things, you did not have a viable vampire character or werewolf character even. Backstory was mechanical, and mechanics were backstory. Was your vampire master a young vampire or a very ancient vampire? That's a stat. Were you rich? Stat. How control of you are you of your predatory vampire side? That's a stat. If you don't at least like sort of medium level role playing, you will not like Vampire, because the victories weren't of the I got the +5 Avenger type. They were I convinced my husband to resist his murderous impulses kind of a thing. And if you are a person who wants your narrative games to have conflict, drama, no easy resolutions built in, World of Darkness was for you then, it's for you now. If you are a person who likes grand, dramatic themes of sex and death and religion, World of Darkness is for you. You are a monster. How much of a monster are you? So for about a decade, World of Darkness ruled. Any gamer of my vintage will probably have a bunch of really, really great memories. I still absolutely love Dark Ages. But a few things happened to the old World of Darkness, and it aged badly. Especially, it had a very, very finger-wagging kind of holier-than-thou attitude. And it did not age well at all. You had things like, these are the Muslim vampires. You racist, you should respect their complex religion and rich history. They're all terrorists. Here's the rules for gypsies. Don't be racist against them, you stupid Georgios. Here's the rules for their stealing magic. Scientific consensus and reproducibility is evil magic in World of Darkness. Loads of stuff. Now, look, it was the 1990s. We thought the internet was a UFO. Just maybe take a lesson here, and what you think is prima facie ethical right now might soon be used against you. Had some other problems. It had a metaplot, which was a sort of a secret true backstory of the various game lines, which was fun, but it was inconsistent, and it took a very, very long time to get to the heart of the matter. Just tell me what I need to know, lads. The cosmology got absurdly complicated, the system was quite clunky, and occasionally, and this was annoying because it was printed inside the books, it wasn't just weird forum posts, you would get these rants from the developers saying that if you were running around in leather trench coats with katanas, you were doing it wrong and you were not artistic like they were. Sort of. That shit ruled. So they rebooted it, and it was one of the best, most successful reboots of all time, because New World of Darkness is some of the most robust rules for urban fantasy / horror that exist in RPGs. It's basically the same line, but the worlds have been made less complex, less Byzantine. It's much easier to jump in and play. The details are different, but you recognize it. Werewolf is still about healing the world. Vampire is still about personal horror and control over yourself. Changeling will not give you a nosebleed anymore. Also, it's just a really rich supernatural background it's a joy to world build with these tools. The complex Gnostic influence of mage, for example, is still there, the ideological clashes of vampire, and it's this rich, dark world of sodium street lamps and black coffee and meeting with supernatural forces and car parks and murder down at the docks. Urban fantasy is such a huge genre these days. There's so many TV shows and books about it, and I cannot think of a better system to engage with this fantastic genre with. Setting up World of Darkness campaigns is actually a really, really fascinating experience. It's like setting up a huge dungeon, but instead of encounters, it's plot hooks and role-playing. North of the bridge, that's where you note down the Devil Hunters. That's where they live. The Nosferatu, they own the Opera House and they refuse entry to the Divas. It's a very different experience than this is the Troll Moors and here's the Forest of the Spiders. You, as a GM, must think carefully about what you want your campaign to be. And that is where we get to what is perhaps the most impressive thing about the new World of Darkness. It is about the virtually limitless GM options. There is no meta plot. There is an implicit world and implicit cosmologies, but there's no real setting. There's dozens of competing and complementary ideas about what a vampire or a wraith or any of that stuff game can be, where it can be set. How do you setting elements? For a narrative GM, which we're all about creating narratives here, White Wolf do it better than anyone. They have just provided an enormous kit to tinker with. There is no pre-written worlds here, not really. World of Darkness is by design enormously customizable. You can go to a full-on horror game where everyone's a serial killer. You can go to a full-on horror game where everyone's bloody Loch Ness monsters. Or you can be goth superheroes. I highly recommend that as a GM, you have a look at how World of Darkness creates worlds, how it creates campaigns, how it gives you tools to be a creative and engaged and switched on GM, and how you as a player cannot simply go, oh yeah, I'm a level 3 bourgeois vampire. You must over and over engage with your own PC. Now, I know it sounds like I've got stock in White Wolf after this kind of rave, but it does have some problems. Now, yes, it has had some unsavory hires over the years. That is just how freelancing works. You cannot police everybody. I am not a big fan of the system. I actually think it works against itself. It's a dice pool thing, so you roll a handful of dice, then you look for 6s or 7s or whatever and above, and I don't think that's very dramatic. It has never had very good adventures from the very beginning. Now, to be fair, writing adventures for this sort of thing is hard because it's so modular, it's so customizable, but I would really like to see some more support for GMs who just need ideas and guidance. If you run Tomb of Horrors or whatever, you know what a cool, successful D&D adventure looks like. Not so apparent in World of Darkness, any version of World of Darkness. So I'd really like to see some more support for GMs there. Also, I hate the short fiction. I'm sorry, guys, I do. It's just demoralizing. It's not very well written. It breaks the tone, and often it's really kind of, I'm extreme man, and I'm just not into it. But if you want to bring in friends who have expressed interest in gaming, but who aren't maybe into heroic fantasy or even action, this is a fantastic place to start. If you have a crew who really like Buffy, or True Blood, or Supernatural, or any of those shows, and the chances are really good that if you were a geek, you or your friends are, this is a fantastic system because you can say, we're going to play vampires, we're going to be werewolves, we're going to be fairies, we're going to be Frankensteins, we're going to be ghosts. And that is a very, very easy pitch to a kind of horror-focused person and a fantasy-focused person, rather than we're going to be Frodos. And if being monsters doesn't appeal, if you don't have a crew who are into transgressive horror, you can always be hunters of the supernatural. There's a lot of support for that, to be the really, really good guys. From the Goonies and Stranger Things, all the way to Grim Inquisitors and Superhumans. I absolutely love the Geist little subgame, which starts out as sort of flatliners, people astrally projecting into the realms of death for science, and it very, very quickly escalates as the true horrors of the afterlife are revealed and becomes a worldwide apocalyptic scenario. If I listed all the cool little subgames that World of Darkness provides, this video would take an hour. Now, I know that some of you are already saying, Christian, my crew are not interested in that sort of game. They do not want an artistic experience. They do not want a deep experience. They don't want complex character drama and difficult resolutions. They want to kick in a door, stab Goblin in the face, nick all its stuff. And okay, fair enough. That's a perfectly valid way to play TTRPG. But as a GM, why don't you try this? Guys, I have invented a fantasy version of Vampire. I have invented a fantasy version of Werewolf. These things both have support within the rules. Why don't we play a mini campaign and see if you like it? And, you know, maybe they don't, but maybe they do, and you get to do something a bit different and a bit darker and a bit more 2D, shall we say. Jesus Christ. But the real reason why you should play World of Darkness is to challenge yourself. As a DM, the world building that you make, you cannot just rely on the old fantasy cliches and tropes. You can't just say, oh, Grumsh is the god of orcs. You must create for yourself. It will not allow you to just rest on your laurels. You must engage with it, and you must do your best as a DM. And I personally think as a narrative person, that's really, really exciting. As a player, you are going to find that you are creating far more rich and complex characters. They're going to be more sophisticated by and large. They're going to want things that you might not be all that comfortable with. But that is part of the fun of this horror game as well. So, World of Darkness, I love it. I really, really recommend that you all give it a try. Thank you. I'm Christian. This is Crowland. Why don't you give us a like? I'll see you next time.